There will come a day in your college career when you'll have to give a group presentation. Maybe that time is now, or perhaps it's in the future. What is a group presentation anyway? A group presentation is an oral performance that involves two or more speakers occupying a stage and working cohesively to present or discuss a topic. Group presentations contrast against individual presentations, where only one person occupies a stage and presents on a topic. Group presentations apply much of what you learn from your individual public speaking practice, but they also add new performative elements that create unique challenges and awesome opportunities. In this lecture series, you'll learn about the fundamentals of group presentations. You'll learn that there are 5 different types of group presentations, and the specific type we will focus on are called team presentations. You'll learn how to format, block, and effectively deliver a team presentation that will impress your audience and get your message across. Believe it or not, you probably watch group presentations all the time on TV. Many popular shows and political events are broadcasted group presentations. Group presentations can occur in 5 different formats. When I say formats, I refer to general templates that organize the speaker's roles and contributions. The 5 formats are a debate, panel, forum, symposium, and team presentation. In this video, we're going to explore each of the formats. The first type of group presentation is a debate. You've probably seen a presidential debate before, so you probably already have an idea of what this is like. A debate is a systematic presentation of 2 opposing sides of a controversial topic. A debate can involve as little as 2 speakers or have as many as 8. In any case, the speakers are broken up into 2 sides: the side in favor of the topic and the side opposed. Before debates, the speakers prepare speeches, or in the debate world, they're called cases, that argue for their side. Some debate formats then allow for cross-examination between 2 sides, where the debaters can talk to each other directly. Some formats allow for questions from a moderator or audience. Debates are a unique type of group presentation because they utilize an adversarial approach at getting towards a truth, or at least arguing for a specific belief or action on a controversial matter by allowing 2 sides an equal chance to present their ideas and examine each other's. Debates are typically governed by rules set forth beforehand. Typical rules will generally regard speech time lengths, cross-examinations, evidentiary rules, or topicality. There may be a moderator who enforces the rules, or there may be judges who don't intervene but decide an official winner at the end of the debate. Depending on your assigned topic, you and your group could do a debate as your presentation. In fact, when I was an undergraduate, I did one for my cosmology class. We had this assignment where we had to research and present on a topic that pertained to humanity's relationship with the cosmos. We did ours on space militarization. Whether the United States should launch weaponized military aircraft into space. Now mind you, this was years before the establishment of Space Force. We did a mock debate, with one side being in favor and the other side being opposed. I argued one side, and the other member of our group argued the other. The third member of our group was the moderator, and we each had partners on both sides, so there was 5 of us total. And then we had the class judge the winner of the debate, and let me say, we did get an A. The second type of group presentation is a panel. You probably see panels all the time on your favorite cable news networks. Usually, there'll be a host who will have 2, 3, maybe 4 different experts, or what they may call panelists, at a table or on the screen simultaneously to discuss a topic. Each panelist will have a unique viewpoint or expertise that makes them different from the others. Typically, Panelists do not prepare cases like debates do. In some formats, they may not even be given the chance to give an opening statement. They might just get introduced at the beginning, and that's it. After the introduction, a moderator will pose a question to the panelists. The panelists will then answer the question by addressing the moderator and the other panelists simultaneously. A good moderator will then let the panelists discuss the questions amongst themselves, enabling the viewer to watch a conversation of experts happen right in front of them. Panelists may all agree on an issue, but more than likely, there will be disagreement on something. Unlike a debate, however, there isn't generally a winner of a panel. The goal of a panel isn't for a side to win, but to discuss an issue collaboratively towards a truth or idea. Now, you could do a panel for a group presentation if you have each member in your group provide a unique perspective or expert background to your topic. Just make sure to have a moderator. The third type of group presentation is a forum. You see forums all the time in the form of press conferences. A forum usually starts with a short opening statement from each of the forum members. Once the forum members have given their brief opening remarks, the rest of the allotted time is a question and answer session from the audience. What makes a forum distinct from a panel is that the forum members take questions directly from the audience, and they generally address their answers to the audience. There's usually not much cross-discussion between the forum members. There's also no moderator in a forum. What makes a forum work well, then, is the inquisitorial audience. If you were to do a forum for a group presentation, you would need to make sure that you have people in the audience who would be willing to ask your group questions. If you don't think that you'll get the needed audience participation, then consider doing a panel format instead with a moderator. The fourth type of group presentation is a symposium. These are not seen frequently on TV, but you generally see them at academic conferences. A symposium has a set of panel members who each share a long opening statement about their unique perspective or contribution. In an academic conference, this usually entails the panelists sharing the findings of a recent research paper that they completed. After each panelist has given their opening statement, there is a person who serves the role as respondent. The respondent then gives a speech about each of the panelists' presentations. The respondent will generally talk about the insights of each panelist's papers as well as possible weaknesses. After the respondent has given their response to each panelist, the symposium will usually open up to a short question and answer period from the audience. The audience can then ask questions directly for each panelist. Panelists might chime in on each other's questions and answers as well. You could do a symposium if each member of your group has done unique research on an aspect of a topic, and you would then need to have someone serve as a respondent who can praise and critique each of the panelists' contributions. You would still need an inquisitive audience for the symposium to work well, though. The fifth type of group presentation, and the one that we will focus on for this lecture series, is the team presentation. A team presentation is a performance where a group of speakers collaboratively present a singular message to an audience. You have probably seen or given a team presentation in a previous class. You and a group of classmates are assigned to present on a topic. All of you must then get in front of the class and present it in a cohesive way. Why is it called a team presentation? One reason is because the other four types of presentations involve some element of extemporaneous and impromptu speaking. In a debate, I have no idea what exactly my opponent is going to say. I may be able to predict what they might say, but I don't have a script of their speech ahead of time. Same with a panel, forum, and symposium. Each speaker arrives not knowing exactly what is going to be asked or what is going to be said by each panelist. Now, I have served on some panels where the The moderator does provide a list of questions, but it still doesn't prepare me for what other panelists might say or what audience members might ask. In that sense, the 4 types of presentations that we've discussed so far have low interdependence. Each speaker in these formats prepare their speeches as individual performers, but they anticipate impromptu group interaction based on the format of the event. Unlike the other 4 presentations, the team presentation is highly interdependent and is highly prepared. In a team presentation, you know exactly what everyone in your group is going to say and when. Not only that, you know exactly where everyone is going to stand and what they're going to do at particular moments in the presentation. In a team presentation, you prepare your speech as a member of a team, where you have a particular segment in the presentation, and it has to make sense in the flow of what your teammates have stated before and what they will state after. Your group may also share a PowerPoint and other visual aids, and you may be given a specific role to fulfill throughout the presentation to help your team. For example, you might be assigned to be the clicker, where you will be in charge of changing the PowerPoint slides for your fellow teammates. Or you might be assigned to the role of MC, where your job will be to introduce each speaker. More than likely, your group will have rehearsed this presentation a few times, many times, before actually delivering it. Rehearsal is rare for the other 4 formats, since they rely more heavily on extemporaneous and impromptu elements, and the speakers are more individualistic in their preparation. The reason I call it a team presentation is because you and your teammates have to coordinate roles, speech scripts, visual aids, blocking, and supporting roles throughout the entire presentation. Moreover, as a group, you'll present a core message as opposed to presenting as a group of independent panelists who each have their own ideas about a topic. A team presentation requires that each speaker prepare as a member of a greater whole, as a team. There are 3 formats of team presentations: hosted, relay, and skit format. One of the distinguishing features between these formats are how speakers transition between each other. Transitions in group presentations refer to when one speaker yields the floor to another. There is an inherent challenge in team presentations. Let's say that there are 5 members in your team standing in front of the audience. The first person on your team begins the presentation with their segment. In the first speaker's segment, they build credibility, establish rapport with the audience, and get the audience excited for the presentation. How does that person take that momentum and transfer it over to the second speaker? You see, in the audience's eyes, the second speaker is a new speaker, which means the relationship between the audience and the speaker would naturally reset. Is there a way to build up the second speaker so that the audience can trust that speaker from the get-go, and then the second speaker does not have to take time to rebuild credibility, rapport, and so on with the audience? And how does that second speaker transfer that trust over onto the third speaker, and from the third speaker to the fourth speaker, and so on? The 3 formats of group presentations approach this issue differently. We will discuss each of them in depth. But first, let's learn the basic team presentation structure that apply to all 3 formats. Think of the basic team presentation structure as being one giant speech composed of several sub-speeches or segments. Just like what you learned in the speech writing series, you will write and structure the team presentation like one large 5-point format speech. Here's how it would look. First, you start with Speaker 1. Speaker 1's job will be to open the presentation by giving an introduction to the entire team and topic. Speaker 1 will need to grab the audience's attention, tie into a thesis, give a preview of what is to come in the presentation. This is very similar to what you would expect in an individual speech presentation. Speakers 2, 3, and 4 each speak to a particular main point of the speech. Now, each speaker should still start with an effective introduction with an attention grabber, tie-in, thesis, preview. This is all very important. If each speaker has a strong attention grabber at the beginning of their segments, then those attention grabbers serve as natural captivators for the entire presentation. That is a good thing. But if each speaker starts with very weak introductions, then the presentation can become boring and you'll lose your audience very quickly. Speakers 2, 3, and 4 should also have main points and conclusions in their segments. In a way, speakers 2, 3, and 4 are giving self-contained speeches that are based on what is said before them and what is said after them regarding the topic. Lastly, Speaker 5 will close the presentation by giving a review, thesis, and tying into a clincher. Speaker 5 has a very important role because that person will leave the lasting impression on the audience. Now let's say that you only have 3 people in your group. How does that work then? Well, you will obviously need one speaker to go more than once. The positioning of your speakers in that case will depend on how you handle the transitions in your team presentation. That leads us to the important issue regarding team presentations, the transitioning between speakers. Like I said earlier, one of the unique challenges in group presentations is maintaining continuity between the speakers. There are 3 different ways to address this challenge that lead to 3 different formats of team presentations. The first type of team presentation format is the hosted format. In a hosted format, you have one team member who is designated as the host, or what I will call the MC. The job of the MC is to open and close the presentation, meaning that they will occupy the positions of both Speaker 1 and Speaker 5. The other job of the MC is to serve as a transition between the speakers. Notice how you see the MC between each of the speakers. The MC does that by providing introductions to each speaker as they go. If you're introducing the presentation as Speaker 1 or the MC, you'll need to make sure that your entire introduction to the entire presentation is strong. You can do that by first having a good attention grabber and tying it in to the thesis of the presentation. You should then give a hyped topic preview. I say hyped because your job is to get the audience excited about your teammates' segments. The MC's job is to make everyone else look good, to put everyone else on a pedestal, if you will. A hyped topic preview should be evocative and make the audience really want to listen to what is about to be said. As you give your hyped topic preview, you should also identify the speakers in your team. You can either name each speaker yourself or create an opportunity for each speaker to say their own name. During this time, you can discuss each speaker's credibility, or you can wait until the transition to do that. After you have built up the topic and the speakers, you'll then transition to the first main point speaker, Speaker 2. There is a particular way that you should do this transition to ensure that it is effective.
You all can identify and relate to the feeling of nervousness, the butterflies in your stomach, if you will, when you're about to do something that matters, about to maybe sit down and get that job interview of your dreams, all that you've got. Or perhaps be the person in a classroom that everyone turns to as soon as a professor utters the word presentation. Or, my own personal favorite, have the upper hand in maybe doing a discussion or debate and using persuasion and argumentation. So please take a seat back and relax, for I am honored to place before you 3 highly qualified and super interesting communications majors with the goal in mind to show you guys the perks of being a comm major and how it can benefit you today. To kick us off, I have behind me, who is a transfer student here at CI. He did 2 years at SBCC and is going to be graduating in the spring with a degree in communications. I'm going to talk to you guys today about how being a communications major gives you the people skills needed to then go on to do better in interviewing, like I talked about, and get closer to landing that dream job of yours. Let's give it up for
To be a good MC, you have to be good at transitioning your speakers by giving strong introductions to each of their segments. Really bad MCing generally just involves the MC saying the speaker's name and then handing over the floor. That is not what you want to do as a good MC. Instead, let's say you're giving a team presentation about COVID-19 and the importance of wearing a mask. Let's say that you're about to introduce Speaker 3 after Speaker 2 just finished their segment about the high infection rates of the virus. Once you have the floor as the MC, the first thing that you want to do is acknowledge what Speaker 2 just said. This is the transition statement. If Speaker 2 gave some mind-blowing statistics or said something very powerful, you can help that speaker by reinforcing that point by either repeating it or summarizing it or using it to help justify the transition to the next speaker. What you don't want to do is sweep Speaker 2 under the rug by not acknowledging anything that they just said and then just moving on to Speaker 3. Your job as MC is to create continuity between speakers. Once you have given the transition statement, then you can use that statement to introduce Speaker 3. You should say their name, of course, but also give some credentials behind Speaker 3's segment. You want to build up your speaker's credibility so they're not having to do it themselves in their segment. Now, I know you might be thinking that your teammate is just a student, but you can still build their credibility by talking about the research that they did or their personal experience with the topic. In any case, you want to give a hyped topic preview. You want to let the audience know that what Speaker 3 is going to say is really important and impactful. You can even create a cliffhanger and say something like, what this person is going to tell you is going to make you rethink the power of wearing a mask. Or, once you have given the hyped topic preview, you can then yield the floor and hand off to the speaker. Now, there are different ways to hand off to a speaker. If you have a clicker that is shared, then you will literally have to hand the clicker to the speaker. You should make sure to practice the physical gesturing of that, because I have seen teams mess this up. They'll either drop the clicker or the MC will get in the way of the speaker, leading to an awkward bump. So when you rehearse, practice the handoff so you don't have those problems. If there is no clicker, then as MC, you just need to have a place to step away from the stage and out of the speaker's territory when you hand them off. When you are not speaking, you should be in the background to not upstage the speaker. When we talk about blocking later, you will see how this can be done effectively. If you prefer not to do a hosted format, then you can opt to do the relay format for your team presentation. I call it the relay format because it works just like a relay race at a track and field event. You do not have a host or MC. Instead, every speaker sets up a transition for each other, just like how two relay joggers hand off the baton. Here is what a relay format structure would look like. It starts with Speaker 1 doing the introduction, just like an MC would. And then the speaker transitions to Speaker 2 again, like an MC. But then, once Speaker 2 does their segment, Speaker 2 will do the transition for Speaker 3, and then Speaker 3 for 4, and Speaker 4 for 5. Speaker 5 then serves as the closer of the presentation and gives a strong conclusion. The idea is that you don't have an MC weaving it throughout the presentation. Instead, everyone is doing their own transitioning. When you do relay format, each speaker should still implement the practices for a good transition. They should give a good transition statement, say the speaker's name, state their credentials, give a hype preview of their topic, and do the handoff for their teammate. This type of format more evenly spreads the stage focus across all of the group members without putting too much focus on one star member who plays the MC. Now you might be wondering, what if I only have 3 or 4 people in my group? In those cases, you would have one person go more than once. Generally, if you're a smaller group of 3 to 4 people, I suggest the hosted format so that you can have one person do the intro and conclusion, and the 2 other members can do the main points, with one person doing main points 1 and 3, and the other focusing on main point 2. But let's say that you have 6 people in your group. What do you do then? In those cases, you can either add a main point, or you can split a main point. If you do the hosted format, you can also have a person be a co-host, where you'd have 2 people taking turns when it comes time to introduce and close the presentation. Think of a famous awards show like the Academy Awards, where some awards are presented by 2 hosts. They take turns talking in the same segment to present the award. The last format for a team presentation is the skit format. Now, this is a bit more of an advanced format that we'll not go into much detail about, but I will describe it some to give you a taste of what this is. In the skit format, you embed a team presentation in the context of a dramatic scene. All of your team members act as characters in a scene, but they still give speeches like as if it is a group presentation. Because you have created a scene, the transitions happen in the context of that dramatic scene. The character speakers will still speak to the audience and their fellow character actors. Let me give you an example. I have had 2 groups who have taken this approach. One group did their team presentation on why group projects should be banned, ironically enough. For their team presentation, they did a skit where they were hosting a funeral for their GPAs because they argued that the group projects hurt their grades. The skit entailed them carrying a hearse and all of the team members wearing black, and them holding a ceremony of eulogies for their grades. But while they gave their eulogies, they made arguments for and against group projects as required in the assignment. I had another group that wanted to argue that the death penalty was wrong. So they created a courtroom scene where someone was on trial for sentencing. One member was the convicted person, 2 were the opposing attorneys, and the other was a judge. They then each gave a speech arguing about the death penalty to the class and also to each other as characters in the scene. Both of those presentations were excellent. However, I must caution you that skit format is very risky for your grade, as you have to make sure that your scene can allow for speeches that meet your professor's requirements. When skit format works, though, it really works. But when it misses, it really misses. I suggest consulting with your professor before committing to skit format. Regardless of which team presentation format you use, you will need to block your speech. Blocking simply means developing a system of movement and standing on the stage throughout the performance. For major theatrical performances like musicals and plays, blocking can be very sophisticated as it has to make sense in the context of a scene and the stage design. Luckily for team presentations, your blocking is much more simple. You'll definitely want your team members to be in some kind of line across the stage. Depending if you have a visual aid that is at the center of the stage, like a PowerPoint, it could be one continuous line, or it could be a chunked line where half are on one side and then half are on the other. These will be your 2 main options. When your teammates are standing, you will want to have a uniform stance. One of the biggest problems with team presentations is teammates causing distractions in the background by fidgeting or looking around the room. As a group, you need to establish how people will stand for the entire presentation. Do you want everyone with their hands at their side, behind their backs, or in front of them? Those are decisions that you can make as a group. You just don't want one person who's fidgeting and another person who's just kind of leaning against the wall and another person just sitting. you want to be in a uniform and professional stance. When you're not speaking, you should be supporting your fellow speakers by watching them with your eyes and nodding in agreement and laughing at their jokes. This is what makes your speech a team presentation. As a team member, you don't just give your segment of the speech and then stop caring after that. No, you are there to support your teammates before your segments, during your segment, and after your segment until the entire presentation is over. If you're standing there but playing with your phone or looking around the room, making faces and other things that are distracting, then you're creating distractions and hurting your team overall. One thing that you should also establish is your speaker lane. There is no reason for each speaker in a group presentation to have to stand speaking in one spot. You can have freedom of movement like you would an individual speech. The speaker lane is a place where each speaker will step in and be able to move around the room as they present. If everyone's in a straight line, then the person speaking should just be able to step forward and move around the room. And then when that person is done speaking, they step back into the line with the team. The next speaker, or MC, then steps forward again and repeats the process. Now that you've established a format and blocking for your presentation, you'll want to make sure that you can keep the audience's attention throughout the speech. If your teammates use strong attention grabbers throughout the main points at the beginning of each of their segments, then you'll have some natural captivators throughout the presentation, which will help with that. Nevertheless, there are some unique audience engagement techniques that you can do in a team presentation much more effectively than you could in an individual one. I call these AETs theatrics because they are specific to team presentations. I'll tell you about 5 different ones. First, you have skits. Now I know that there is a skit format where the whole presentation is a skit with embedded speeches. But let's say that you want to stick to a traditional hosted or relay format team presentation, then you can incorporate a short skit as an attention grabber. Second, think about team uniforms. These would be good pre-speech attention grabbers if everyone is wearing the same thing or something along a similar theme. If your speech is about a sport, maybe each of you will wear a jersey of your choice related to that sport. Or maybe your team will create a standard t-shirt or polo for everyone to wear. If your team has no uniform, you're missing a huge opportunity to show cohesion and professionalism. At the very minimum, I always suggest dressing up in business attire as an option. College students don't like to dress up, so when your team decides to be unique and dresses professionally, your team stands out in a very positive way. Third, your team can use handouts and activities. In fact, you can do handouts more effectively than you can as an individual because you have teammates who can help with the preparation and dispersal of the handouts. I had one team who handed out cups of water for a speech about water shortages. They were able to do an in-speech activity with the class quite effectively because they planned the water pouring and dispersal effectively, with everyone on the team having a role to execute it. Doing an activity like that in an individual speech would have been nearly impossible to do without soliciting and training a few volunteers before the speech even started. Fourth, your team can do a group chant. A group chant is a moment where your team says something at the same time. You see these on Shark Tank all the time, where a team will say their company name or ask the sharks to make a bid. I had one group that not only chanted their slogan, but also created signs that they held up. It kept the audience's attention for sure. Lastly, your team can do a dramatic entrance or an exit, or both. When your team does a dramatic entrance, you will step out of the classroom and then enter it doing some kind of unique activity. I had one team who did their speech on the Electoral College. They started their speech with an entrance of them marching in colonial attire. And one student even played the flute like it was 1776 all over again. They then gave their speech in their uniforms, and then at the end of the speech, they exited in the same way they entered, marching in line with a flute playing. There is a lot to take away regarding group presentations. Let me leave you with 3 final thoughts. First, transitions make or break team presentations. Ultimately, the format of your team presentation that you go with will be based on how you prefer to transition. Do you want an MC doing it, each team member doing it, or do you want to embed it in some kind of dramatic scene? Second, and I cannot emphasize enough, rehearse, rehearse, and then rehearse some more. Unlike an individual presentation where you have total control over almost every aspect, a team presentation has several moving pieces that require coordination. When I see team presentations go badly, it's because they did not rehearse at all and something that they didn't expect happened. And that thing that they didn't expect was 100% preventable if they had just practiced at least once. This is not Second City comedy or Whose Line Is It Anyway? As I've once heard from another speaker, do not rehearse until you get it right. Rehearse until you cannot get it wrong. Lastly, for a team presentation to work, each member must be a team player. You have to think in terms of what is best for your teammates and the presentation overall, not just what is good for yourself. That means that when you prepare your segment, you're sticking to the allotted amount of time given for your segment and not substantially going over. It means showing up to your team's rehearsals and rehearsing your best. It means helping with the visual aids and preparation with props and handouts. It means being supportive and communicative with your teammates throughout the presentation process and preparation process. If you're not a team player, then it will show on your presentation date and your group's grade will suffer because of you. But overall, team presentations can be very fun and exciting to watch. In my public speaking class, my students do team presentations as their final speeches. I have beginner level students give some of their greatest performances in those contexts. I think anyone can succeed in a team presentation. You just have to be creative, structured, and a team player.